All right, Pete, here we go. I've got a few things to talk to you about. And yeah, here's all your pictures. All right, so let's go. First off, when you send pictures to me, I get it that you're putting comments here. But when you do that, for some odd reason, the metadata that is on the image, I can't see that. So therefore, I can't tell you one way or another. One thing I will say about this photo in and of itself is just the resolution. I can immediately tell this is just a much better lens to begin with. So let's kind of, same with this, again, just very sharp. In fact, something I'm going to point out here too on these images. You're saying this is very sharp. I think it's a fraction of a fraction, just a little bit soft. Yeah, we can kind of see the hairs on there, but something about the eye, it almost like there's just a little bit of motion blur on that, and I don't know why. That to me just seems a little bit not sharp. That's good, but that's a zoomed in piece because I can tell from the pixelation on the edge of that. Really nothing much to say about these. Until we get to the ones where there is no metadata. This, by the way, is overexposed. I will say that much. And you'll get to learn this because these greens are just not natural. Green, when you shoot against something green, like green grass, typically the camera will say, hey, green seems to be that neutral gray that I talked about before. Just as a guide, and this has just got way too, it's just overexposed, probably by almost a full stop. Okay, yeah, basketball net. A little bit hazy. Anyway, let's get to the other ones because this is more interesting to me. And of course, well, the metadata is not on this one too. Oh, because these are all, again, you put the comments on there, which scrubs the metadata from that, and that makes things really tough for me to critique if I don't have that. Blue sky, that's good. I mean, look, I can just tell, just it's a much better lens, hands down. Is there any difference between 5.6 and 8.0? When you're shooting far away like this, usually that doesn't matter too much at all. I think what you'll find is that, I've said this to you before, every lens has a sweet spot in terms of sharpness at whatever aperture. So there could be a little bit difference in sharpness from one to the other. To me, the 5.6 seems a little bit sharper. Let me zoom in again. Yeah, that's, look, there's a couple factors that could play into this, but yeah, it almost seems like 5.6 is sharper than the 8.0 just by a fraction. I'm just looking at line detail. So yeah, little minor things. Yep, can read the mailbox numbers. I know you couldn't do that before with the other. Funny thing is, yeah, that I think is your focal plane right here, your focus point, or even this. Not so much the black mailbox, but yeah, all good. All right, so now we're getting into the images where you didn't futz with the. I can see the metadata here, so I know you shot it at 5.0, 1/60th of a second, and you did that at 200 mil. Great. Okay, what I found, in fact, this is why I know, again, why this is such a better lens to begin with. Have a look at this, Pete. Look at the hair detail in this. You could not get that sharpness. Look at the skin. Look at the detail in the skin. You could not get this with the other lens. This is what you're paying for. This is what is in the good lenses. You just can't get sharpness and resolution like this with crap lenses. Hands down. Look at the eye. Just the sharpness. That's the kind of stuff you want to, you know, that's what we're trying to achieve. Lighting is good on this. It's coming in from a little bit behind, all like this. Face is pretty flat. The only way you could have really improved this, and this is something I'm going to talk more on, is your framing, how you frame your shots. Again, the real big difference between an amateur and a pro is you will never see where I put the center of the head in the center of the frame right here. Never happen. Just doesn't happen. And that's one way you can tell the difference between someone who knows what they're doing and someone who is faking it. So again, for example, this right here, you lost. Again, what are we doing with all this negative space above her head? The other thing I will be critical about, look, the exposure is right, maybe just a pinch over, but the exposure is right on her face. But in doing this, and again, it's because of this the day, all the detail in this area right here to the right of her, it's gone. It's gone. So a better shot would have been to position yourself over, and I could be wrong, but I'm looking at the detail on the left-hand side of the picture. We still see a little bit of detail in the window. So I'm wondering if you could have framed this in a way where you moved your body more to the right, to where you would have gotten the highlights in her hair kicking off of this glass right here. And then if you framed it, and I'm going to work more on this with you, if you framed it more like that, something like that, you know, kind of judging by the rule of thirds, where you've got, okay, here's the line of third right here, here's the line of third. To me, that's a much more interesting shot right there. So let's see. I'm going to talk about zooming in and framing, especially now that you have this 200 mil. But again, it's just that white part right here. It's just had you had this beam right here behind her, it works well on this side of the head. Nice with that. So if you moved yourself over to the right and had that right there behind this side of her head it would have been her left side of her head, I think you would have had a more effective shot with that. So again, that's going beyond the whole technical aspect of that. I get it. Let's just move on. I'm going to go with this here. Okay. I would have put her, you're kind of repeating yourself. I like the where the light is, but it's almost, look at how we're blown out here. You're exposed properly for the one side of the face, but then because the sun is so bright in this situation, she's now overexposed on the other side of her face. This to me right here is a better angle with this, because again, we're just kind of getting that highlight off of that, getting the highlight off of the hair. Again, look at the sharpness. Look at the sharpness of this, Pete. Skin is exposed nicely. Get a little bit on the tip of the nose there. That's great. Much better. But again, you'll never see me put a head right in the middle. So let's take this shot right here. Let's say you did want to do a shot where she was symmetrical with the center there. What I'm getting at is that you've got all this negative space above her. It's like, well, you just, okay, what about what's happening below? It just doesn't work for me. So if we did like just even a symmetrical shot. That is how I would frame something where it was more symmetrical like that. If you want her in the center. But again, for me, what's more interesting are these shots where she'll be a little bit off center like that. So let's, have a look at that. Again, I'm shooting more in a commercial vein too, but I'm just trying to show you there's things you can do, and I think I go into one shot here. I'm going to show you something in a minute. We're talking about rethinking how we frame things. So I'm kind of trying to segue into that, Pete, once we get past this whole technical side of things here. Love the colors on this. That's neat. But again, it's tough, and you're not quite in focus on anything. But again, what's your focus in that shot? All right. Now I'm nitpicking. I love the background on this. Awesome background. But it seems like you're out of focus. You're soft. You are definitely soft on these shots. 1/200th of a second. So for some odd reason, you didn't hit focus on this. Don't know why. Shot it at 3.5. Yeah, you're just not on focus. That's better. Yeah, look at the skin. You can see it's better. So let's take this shot right here. I want to show you something because you've got this awesome lens. I know you're trying to show the purple and things like that in there, but again, stop putting her head in the center of the stinking frame. To me, shoot this. You've got the power to shoot something. Let's start breaking some rules here. I mean, look at this. What if we shot this where we're chopping the top of her head off? We can do that. Look at this. That's an interesting photo. To me, look at this. The bokeh, everything's blown out. We know what our focus is when we see a shot like this. It's definitely Carolina. So that's how, and the thing is, you can zoom in. You were at 150 millimeter. Zoom in to 200. You're at 3.5. You know what? You could have shot it at 5.6 still. You still could have shot it at 5.6 and blown out your background on this. Everything's pretty well in focus. That looks good. You could have done a 4.0 or a 5.6. Increased your ISO just a pinch. Shutter speed's all right. Yeah, 1/25th at 150 millimeter is fine, especially with the image stabilizer on that. It's great. Lighting is good. I can see it's just a little bit front lit like that, but the sun is definitely going down, starting to make a much more pleasant shot. In fact, there's a shot coming up here that I really want to talk about. Pete, I'm nitpicking this stuff. For some odd reason. Okay, so you shot 200th, and it looks good, but the problem is, for whatever reason, your focus is off. Don't know why. You'll have to figure that out. But what I would have done to shoot this shot, focus on her with the back button, release, repositioned, take the picture. And how I would have shot this, I would have come right on in. I would have come right on in, and that would have been my shot right there. Start thinking that way. It's okay to cut their head off. It really is. Nothing wrong with that. Yeah, okay. Flowers are in bloom. I love it. No real shot of focus or no subject. Obviously, you're taking pictures of plants. Doesn't do anything for me, but if you enjoy it, great. Again, I gave this notation or I talked about this in the email I sent you first, talking about going right to infinity and just ever so often, or just a little bit, just fraction come right off of the infinity right there. This shot here is what I wanted to talk to you about. I love the lighting on this. This is so pleasing to my eye how this is shot. The exposure is right on the money. Now we just needed a little bit better subject. I mean, this is good. This is fine. But the lighting, this is what I want to point out to you more than anything, is you've got that sun going down. Had you taken, let's say, I don't know how the scene was like here, right? If there had been a little bit of sun poking out, right? Even further forward of that, and you put somebody right there, that could have worked really, really well. I wouldn't put somebody out in the field out there to try and capture. What I'm trying to do is I'm trying to just get a hair of that beautiful lighting just hitting the subject from behind to kind of help illuminate them a little bit, and against, a little bit of the dark and light background. Either way, this is the kind of lighting that you're looking for that makes some super pleasing shots. And so when you start shooting stuff like this, you might look for like a little break between the trees where like a little light ray is coming down, and then stick your subject right in the middle of that light ray that's coming here. There's a lot right about this photo, and it looks great. You shot it at 2.8, 155. Honestly, you could have even gone down to 5.6. And I think I'll just mention this now. You're going to start finding that as much, and I used to shoot 2.8 all the time when I shot these cars. And over the years, what I've learned is that I want to start giving myself a little bit of a margin, a wider margin for error. And so I tend to stop down more in the 4.0, sometimes 5.6, just to get a little bit extra depth to that, just to make sure I'm very sharp in an area. Again, it is one of those subjective things that you've just got to kind of just figure out and just think about it as you go through this, and just you make a decision, you take your shot, and that's it. Anyway, really like this shot. It's just the lighting is great on it. Exposure's around the money. It's good, very good. Yeah, great. Sharp, in focus, you got it. Best you can do with a 200 millimeter lens. Yeah, nothing much to say about that. This one, you might have gotten a better image had you stopped down. You might have cut through a little bit of the haze if you'd stopped down in that 5.6 range. Hard to say. It could have been a hazy day too. Tough to say. Yeah. Nice sharp image. Again, this might be where you're saying, oh, I'm underexposed, and that's because you're shooting at a blue sky. And so it's trying to, the camera will see that blue and it'll try and make it the neutral gray, which still doesn't come out to the exposure being correct, which again is why I shoot in manual mode. So if you want to expose for this guy right here, the caveat of that is too, then you start overexposing your background, your sky. Tough to say. Yeah. Just not a great picture overall. This image right now, I will tell you, is definitely about a stop overexposed. You are definitely overexposed on this one. Let's see. And the cat's moving, which is why it's not sharp focus. And you're overexposed, which doesn't help. That's all right. But your greens, you want those greens right here in the grass, you want them to look like this right here in the corner. That's the exposure of a green, and you should be able to very quickly see that in the screen. You take a test. If you take a test shot, you say, oh, the greens are too light, stop down, a couple stops, or stop down a couple thirds, and then you get the right exposure. Same thing with this shot, just overexposed, and he was moving. You're shooting 1/80th of a second at 200. I'm sure you have the image stabilizer on, but that's why this picture just is not sharp. Yeah, see, there's handheld motion. None of this. Yeah, see, there's blur in everything on this shot, and that is motion blur from shaking the camera. Moving on. Good exposure, but the light is not very pleasing. But that's being very critical. But I see what you mean, 1600. And yep, 1600. 1600 is definitely the max I think you can go with this camera without this grain is pretty acceptable. We can get rid of that in post if you really want to, Pete. It's definitely adding like a chromatic coloring noise to it. Look, the Canon camera is, if you want a low light camera, go with Sony. They're great for it, but I will still stick with Canon either way. Yep, sun's already down. I can tell. All good. This, to me, is an interesting shot. You got the exposure right on the money. This is great. Look at the detail. In this, it's just very pleasing to the eye. But it does look like you got just a pinch of motion blur. You did. Look at this, 1/40th of a second at 200 mil. And so at first it looks sharp, but then when you zoom in, it is just a pinch, Pete. You got a little handshake in there. Huh. But you shot it at 5.6 or 5.0. Yeah, it's just a little little bit of shake. Go back during the day when you got more light and you can get your shutter speed faster on this. You're gonna find a better result. 5.0 was a good aperture for this. Still, to me, it's an interesting shot just because of the colors that are in there and the detail. I'm just imagine if the lines in this were super sharp, just like the hair that we were looking at before. That could be really interesting with that. So go and try that. I'd go do that. All right, let's keep moving. Yeah. All right. Spying on the neighbors again. That's good. All right. This is good. 200, 250th of a second, 6.3. Okay. Yeah, look, you got a little bit of, I don't know why that's a little bit of blur. Weird. I have to check that. I don't know why you're getting a little bit of shake in the camera, but it's there. Look, either way, still, this blows away that other lens, man. This is just way better. Way, way, way better. Oh, good. We've still got some more coming up here that I want to talk about. Good. Let's keep moving then. Kind of a neat shot. I did like this. In fact, I find this shot more interesting, even though it is blurry, just because of the juxtaposition of the B. I find this more of an interesting shot than the straight on one. Unless you had gotten the wings also flapping as well. That could have made for an interesting shot, and we just don't quite see that in this shot here. But yeah, no, you caught it. right at the moment. Seems just a little bit soft though. But again, this is just a more interesting shot to me, even if it is a little bit blurry. That's right. Just keep taking them. Here we go. Perfect exposure. Look at how blue and green all that is. Now I know you can say that's ultra contrasty, and that could be, you're probably shooting in standard color, was the color range? I can't remember the thing of it right now. But exposure is just right on the money here. 70 mil, 160, ISO 10. Yeah, it's great. Okay. Bird, much better shot than the other ones. Look at the blue sky. That's kind of cute too. How cool is that? Yeah, and look at this. And this is what I was talking about before where, oh, look, you just added something to this. Okay. Have a look at just the bird is exposed, the sky is exposed right, and had the sun gone down and you've kind of like hazy white and all, it would have underexposed the whole image. So, all good. All right, I see you're kind of playing with this being a ISO 2.8. Just a fraction, like a third underexposed. Just a little bit. I know I'm nitpicking on all this stuff here. Hey, and yeah, I don't know that I could have framed it any differently. I'm just, you know, what's interesting to me is the contrast between the yellow and the red here. I'm just having a play with this. Is that a more interesting shot right there? I love the line. Lines like that always help a shot. Yeah, just have a think. That to me might be a little bit more interesting shot. Okay, let's move on. Yeah, I guess you're just checking focus on this one, which you're not in focus on that. Ooh. If you do this shot again, stop down to 4.0 and see what happens. I think it, because I'm seeing just a little bit of a haze on the edges here. Very strange. Okay. Exposure is very good on this. Look at the detail in that log. I love it. The blue is the right blue. Looks good. Kind of an interesting shot, man. Let's see. I'm just going to have a play with this. If we frame this a little bit differently. That to me is a little bit more interesting, getting rid of the negative space. Yeah, we want to see the top of that. I'm nitpicking, but and it's all subjective, Pete. This just looks a little bit more interesting to me. A little bit. It's nothing. All right, let's talk about these flowers. All right, when you're going to start shooting this kind of stuff like this, I don't think this is a great example, but let's look at this purple one. This, to me, this is awesome. Fantastic. I love the coloring that is in here. You got the exposure is right on the money. This looks great. Look at the bokeh. Everything's blurred out. Now look at this. You've shot this at 4.0. If there's anything I have to say about this is you probably could have shot this at 5.6. When you're zoomed in real close like that, 200 millimeter, you can get away with stopping down and still with the camera being having that bokeh, that beautiful bokeh that we're talking about. I might have even positioned myself, I don't know what's below the flower here, but if you could have had more of an upward looking in shot, that might have been better, maybe, I don't know. What is losing it for me is I would have liked to have seen a little bit more of this part here in focus and this part right in here. I wish this was a little more in focus. I'm nitpicking on this. Yeah, and see when you're really into these macros, see just the blurriness. All right. For me, it just kind of detracts it. I get it. You want to have an isolated image, and let me show you something. I have this ready to show you. So this is the Canon 5D Mark IV. Your camera is going to have the same thing here. So obviously on this camera, you've got a this is for the release for the lens. But the button you need to start paying attention to, now it might be different on your camera, it might be on this side, it might be up here, I don't know. But it is the aperture check. You're going to push this while you're looking through the lens. Now what's going to happen is when you have everything stopped down, your aperture stopped down, when you push that button and you're looking through the lens, everything is going to get very dark because it's stopping down the aperture, so less light is coming through. But what you're checking in that moment is it stops it down so you can check the depth. It's a depth check. So you push that, you hold it, you look, okay, that's good depth right there. Or I need to either stop it down or I need to open the aperture up more. Start using this for this kind of shot because to me, you could have gone 5.6 on this. Maybe even stop down more. And what you would have then gotten is a bit more of this flower in focus. You still would have had your background blown out, but I definitely would have known better, okay, what's the focus in this shot? Again, I'm nitpicking, but these are the kinds of things of what I see and what I start thinking about when I take shots like this, just to make sure that I'm getting good success with the shot. So look, go back and do it again. In fact, you know what you can do when you start even doing these shots? Do a bunch of them. Set in one space and just keep ramping your aperture down, 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 and just take another shot. Aperture down, increase your shutter speed or your ISO obviously to compensate, but keep, the aperture is what's so critical in this kind of a shot. So, you might take 5 shots of the same thing, stopping the aperture down, and one of them in there would have been better than the others. So that's what you can do in this type of an instance. There you go. Good one. Bird's pretty sharp, looks good. 1/400th, great. Exposure on the bird is right. Obviously, it's a little bit blown out in the background, but that's all right. Cool. Nail on focus. This is great. Yeah. There we go. And again, this is great. You nailed the exposure on this. Fantastic. Yep, 400 to 8. You could have stopped down to a 4.0, no problem. I know you're just trying to get just that flower. I get it. A 4.0 though, you could still afford a 4.0 or even a 5.6 on this, and still everything would have been blown out. It just would have made it maybe a little bit more interesting. Hard to say because I wasn't there. But these are things that I just start experimenting with when I do these kinds of shots. Yep. All right, Pete, I think that's it. We're at the end here. Hopefully you've gained something from this. Again, I think the takeaway for me, Pete, if you'd taken this kind of lighting, even if it's kind of in the shadows here and all like that, and you stuck her in there and made sure we're sharp, and we're not sharp on that one. There we go. And stuck her in there somewhere with that really pleasant lighting. Yeah, I don't know. You got to have a play with it. But look, you're getting the hang of it, and yeah, just better. Yeah, I have no more to say. That's it. I'm going to send it to you. Good luck.